this is Spielberg's favorite movie, Lawrence of Arabia.
It's like even the shot selection is like, this is total Spielberg's like just doing this, and I'm here. I love it.
Yeah, and they're sort of coming out of like the film school generation and all that kind of stuff, and this is like a pretty recent movie, and it was like this huge hit, so of course it's going to make this big impression, and so like. Lucas too. Like Lucas, like there's some moments in Star Wars, like a lot of the Tatooine stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Is like Lawrence of Arabia, and the musical cues are very similar, and just the widescreen spectacle of desert stretching in every direction. So yeah, it's in all the Indiana Joneses. Even there's even elements of it in Temple of Doom.
Yeah, like the when he's up on the train, he's in silhouette. That's like the Well of Souls kind of thing, where there's the workers, Indy's there, and then like...
Well, just the fact that like one of the centerpieces of Lawrence of Arabia is like a train sequence, and so you have that in Indiana Jones, trying to like stop a vehicle, like it's like, okay, we're gonna stop this vehicle, and Indiana Jones, like the outfit that he wears. The lighting, the makeup, the glistening sweat on him when he's got the staff and making the light go through it. It's Lawrence. He's wearing the Lawrence outfit. He's got his eyes showing and his blue eye, his baby blues, glistening.
His earring glinting in the
right. His lightning bolt earring.
Callista got it for me.
I mean, this is a hugely influential movie, and again, the charms of it were lost on me, for a really long time, like until just having a projector and being able to see it big, and it's like, okay, now I get it. Now I can imagine you go into a movie theater and see it in like Cinerama or whatever.
Dude, I would kill to see this on like the biggest possible screen ever. Like this movie, I think of like I could just like I'm going to rewatch it plenty of times, but just not even have the sound on, just have it playing. Like this might be the biggest, most hulking movie that's ever been like
the scale of it, the beauty, and I mean, and lots of the scenes are even when they're kind of like in the city and stuff. There's a tremendous like depth of field and cast of thousands and all that stuff. But then like those desert shots are the ones it's like famous for. And it's like, it's just beautiful. It's like a painting or something. You see the desert and you see all the shapes, and then you see like little bits of sand, blowing, and the colors and the chiaroscuro.
Whenever we're in the desert, we'll have to like. Now I know when somebody's coming in the distance, they're always looking for like little like beads of sand, like.
But I mean, I was watching this, and then I was watching Last Crusade.
Oh, and what a team up!
Like there are identical shots where it's like there's this shot in Lawrence of Arabia, and then there's these tiny little camels that and then there's like the identical shot in Last Crusade, except it's horses. It's like guys on horseback, and
in Star Wars, like the banthas like coming across.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, there's a lot of pastiche, like the film school generation. They're taking all their little influences and putting together these like patchwork things. So you have like De Palma doing his like Hitchcock bits and stuff, and so you have Spielberg doing his Lawrence of Arabia stuff, and Lucas bringing in some Lawrence of Arabia, and then bringing in some of this, some of that, some Humphrey Bogarts, and so you get the generation sort of taking their influences and making something new out of it. By the way, this is Recallpiece Theatre. This is when we do some of the more highbrow material.
Yeah,
we're not talking about Who's the Boss this time. We're doing Lawrence of Arabia, and we're such cinema experts that like I don't know the name of the director.
David Lean.
David Lean. Okay, so yeah,
it's only on the Total Recall show where in one episode we'll cover the Boneyard match and jump directly to Lawrence. That's why we love this show.
Yes. Yeah, we have the high and the low. And I'm Tom Scioli, author of I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, which is available for pre-order, and you'll find that pre-order link in the show notes below. And at that same link, you can pre-order Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
And please follow me on Twitter at Tom Scioli and on Instagram at Tom_Scioli.
Follow me on Instagram at cinema_tomb.
And check out my Patreon. Go to patreon.com, search Tom Scioli, and if you sign up, you'll have access to the full archive as well as new art and comics as I post them.
Follow the show on Instagram at total_recall_show.
So yeah, back to Total Recallpiece Theatre.
My spats, my Bowie spats were in the dry cleaner.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, this has, I think my favorite performance from this movie is Omar Sharif.
Okay, yeah.
He was Oscar nominated for it.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome role. I like it. I love Peter O'Toole too, but he's a little stagey in his performance, which I mean,
this is like,
it's his first film.
From our perspective, like, Peter O'Toole, it's like, who is this guy? Like, it was like, okay, everybody's making a big deal about this guy, but who gives a shit? Who is he? And it's like, this is the movie. This is like the star-making performance. Yeah, that it's like everybody, and like, I get it now, but from where I was coming from, it's like this dusty old guy who's, on the Johnny Carson show or whatever.
I like how I was given notes on Peter O'Toole's performance in Lawrence of Arabia. Yeah, I mean, like, he has a great fucking look. Like, blonde, blue eyes, like, what a fucking, like, image on screen.
Yeah, he's like like Elvis or something. Like, he's prettier than most girls. That kind of thing.
And it said in the credits introducing. So I think he did plays. This is imagine your first film being like Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah, something this big too, and where you're like the centerpiece of it. And it makes sense getting a stage actor for an epic like this, where it is like it's not an intimate movie. Like, you have to sort of command these large spaces, so it does translate pretty well.
Tom, that's genius director thought, because like you need him to hit his mark to stand and deliver here, not fuck around. Like they're like, he's like, well, yeah, we spent like 3 hours dusting the camel prints. We need you to like play as big as possible and get this take here.
Another thing that only occurred to me, like, watching this, was that, like, you think of this, it's like, he's in the Middle East, he's in in this like setting and stuff, but it's like, this movie was coming out of the tradition of the Western. Like, the Western informs so much, just the large, epic, just the scale, the landscapes that just go on in every direction, and sort of like these like no man's land kind of areas and stuff.
Like, I love the shots where the camera's just like slowly panning, and you're trying to like see the small little like folks like.
And you're kind of like experiencing nature, like it's almost like a documentary. You're capturing again, like, the sand blowing, ever so delicately off of these rolling dunes and rocks. Do you know where it was filmed? Because I was wondering, like, is this like the California desert or like Arizona or something? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like,
because it's like I'm buying it as like,
I think they're on location.
They are on location. Okay. And I can see why, like, to Lucas, it was like really important to get the right location for like Tatooine and stuff, where it's like, okay, the Arizona desert isn't going to cut it. Like, we need, so he ended up with Tunisia. Yeah.
I could. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, great cuts.
The Last Crusade here.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, this is just that kind of like lighting. Like, there's certain scenes in Indiana Jones that have like a direct corollary in here, like. When they have that scene where they're like digging for like where the Ark is, and it's like pulled back, and you're just seeing these kind of silhouettes against sunset. It's like so there's like that exact shot in this.
In this, there's a shot where the sun's rising, they're walking, and then in Last Crusade, the sun's setting, and so it's like.
Yeah, and this is one of the shots I was talking about where it's just like this beautiful landscape, like a painting or something. And there's like there's like a bunch of shots where it'll be like, guys riding on camels going like straight into the background or coming into the foreground. And like there's that like last shot of Last Crusade that I always think of where they're like riding their horses and they just keep going and going, and they just like kind of shrink down to like super tiny, but you're still seeing them. Yeah, this is like Luke and Obi-Wan Kenobi and C-3PO and R2-D2 looking down at Anchorhead. And then beyond that, it's like This also has Alec Guinness. So
I
it's,
know.
you know, so George Lucas is like, I want Alec Guinness in my thing, you know. He looks great in a robe.
You mentioned like it just focusing on the sand blowing or like the wind blowing. I could watch. I wish I wish this was like movie was like 6 hours long.
Right.
I could watch.
It's close to it.
I think it's clocking in. It's like an 8-hour epic.
Well, now the first time I saw this movie, I saw it in high school, in class, in like history class or whatever, and like they wheel in that TV that's on a tall cart, and like I'm like, you know, close to the back of the room, looking at this tiny thing, and like. It's like, what is this shit? And we just like goofed on the movie from start to finish. So like, I don't have like any recollection of it because like
you're riffing
it. Yeah, exactly. We were just goofing because it's like
it's
just like the worst possible. Like you're in high school, you're already looking, you know, you're looking this kind of, you know, fuck around or whatever, and it's like they're showing us this movie like in the 90s. They're showing us this movie from the early 60s, and it's like. You know, it's doomed to failure. And like, you know, and he's on his motorcycle, and it's like, oh my god, look at that cheesy, you know, the shitty film stock, and the bad like green screen or whatever behind. You know, it's like, you know, and again, you know, it's just very different when you're. You know, when you're a kid versus when you're, and now I watch it, and you know, and I'm loving it. I'm sorry, and like where it's like he gets killed, but they do his death scene like real tastefully, and there's just like his goggles like hanging from a tree, and like we're just cracking up. We're just like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. What's up with his hair?
It's like the camera pans over. It's his underwear hanging in the tree. It's like I was riffing it. With,
like shit stain on.
It pans over. And it's like, how did those get caught?
Mm-hmm. Beautiful starscape. You know.
Well, I was waiting for a shooting star to shoot across.
Mm-hmm. With like Dune, the new Dune movies and stuff coming out, I saw somebody online say, "Oh yeah, Dune is Lawrence of Arabia in space," and like that never occurred to me. But it's like, it's you know, Frank Herbert watches Lawrence of Arabia and then he writes Dune. You know, it is kind of like just like a sci-fi'd up version of Lawrence of Arabia. Yeah.
Watching this movie, I was always thinking like, would I be able to sleep in this situation? Like, I like their bedrolls, their little like
or
tense micro tent.
He has like the water, and it's like, I'll drink when you drink, and it's like you're kind of you know, it's like, oh, maybe I'll take a while before I take a sip from my glass. You know.
Yeah. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is the introduction of Sharif when they're at the well and he's coming up like riding up. Takes him like
look at that gun. That's you know, Indiana Jones's gun. You know?
Oh yeah.
The swordsman that Indiana Jones shoots is more or less Anthony Quinn's character.
Yeah.
In this, you know,
he definitely is.
There's movies that have like, because like Prometheus, like has clips from Lawrence of Arabia in it, and Michael Fassbender's performance is like, his robot character is, you know. Deliberately modeling himself after Peter O'Toole in this.
He's got the blonde hair.
Mm-hmm. A lot of good food stuff, and like there's the one scene where it's like they have this like giant tray of meat, and it's like all the head guys, like the top guys, are in this tent, and they're just kind of picking at this meat, and then when they're done with it, then like. The guys come in and they carry it out to like everybody who's waiting outside, and then they get to like it's kind of like you get your first pick out of this stuff, and when you're full and you want no more, then everybody else can like dig in, and everybody's like having a great time. And then like in the like distant background and stuff, real tiny, you see like a tent.
There's so much.
There's so much going on. Yeah,
I'm gonna be revisiting this like a lot.
Yeah,
with the
Yeah, like look at how the sand's just like rolling off of there. And again, I imagine it's like getting into the cameras, you know, all the
it's melting
in everybody's
them.
mouths. And...
there was a scene that I thought I would like to do.
Look at this. This is like, never will you find a wretched hive of scum and villainy. It's that shot, and it's like
it's exactly that. There's Mos Eisley right there.
And when you're making like your first couple movies and stuff, you're like, okay, what are some of my favorite things in movies? And let me see if I can like reproduce it. Oh, and then look, we're looking through the spyglass like Luke, You know,
and he sees them down there.
I'm surprised like somebody doesn't like pop up in front of him and like shake a stick at him.
Allie Guinness pops up in front of him.
Right.
Well, you know what too? The sound effects of like the sand people and stuff. There's like
some of the camel sounds
very.
And the tauntaun in Empire Strikes Back is kind of like modeled after a camel too. It's got a little bit of a camel thing
like,
going on. Yeah.
There they go. When he's at night walking in the... Remember when he's like taking a little like night stroll?
Yeah, and he goes on kind of like a vision quest, a little like he's just like kind of sitting there and not saying anything, and then he gets his like big insight. I feel like that, carries over into Dune, the sort of like visions. And...
Yeah. I would like to do that little vision. It looks refreshing just to like walk in the moonlight in the desert.
Like a Carlos Castaneda kind of thing.
Yeah. If you're David Lean, how are you... it's like, all right, the 700th extra action.
Yeah.
Like,
I wonder if they tried to get Peter O'Toole to play Marcus Brody in the Indiana Jones movies. How great would that have been casting-wise?
That would have been amazing.
Because the age would have been
perfect,
just right. Yeah.
In his own museum.
Yeah, kind of similar to having Sean Connery play Indiana Jones' dad, where it's like somebody who would have been like the Indiana Jones character, 20 years earlier is now the dad. And yeah, like the costume, like the Tusken Raider outfits are clearly based on this kind of stuff.
There's the one photographer guy. There's a character later in the movie. He's wearing Marcus Brody's outfit. It's like the bluish jacket with the white like shirt and tie. Like,
it's World War I, and like when you think about World War I movies, you're thinking of like trench warfare in France or something, and then like this is like another aspect of the war, like another part that's going on that you don't really think about as much, but plays so much in our life, to this day. Like a lot of the sort of deals that are being made here, and the borders that are being drawn and stuff, are we're sort of, which is why they were showing it to us in high school, like in school in history class, and they were and they're like, and again we were like, what's this stupid, boring.
Your goggles riff is pretty great.
And yeah, like after that motorcycle scene at the very beginning, it's like we were all checked out. We were pretty. It was. I mean, my heart goes out to like teachers who try to like show a movie. And like something like this where you're making the kid. It's like, in school one time they showed Karate Kid, and that was like yes.
Yeah, now you're talking.
But it's like if you're trying to show something that's not that kind of movie, it's like good luck.
Yeah, it's like you're showing high school kids Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Tom. I was riffing movies starting in elementary school.
Right.
Like they were showing DuckTales, Treasure of the Lost Lamb, and me and my buddy we're talking over but it wasn't like our own conversation. We're just like we're doing basically what we're doing now. But she was
doing
like
a show.
And I had to. They're like they caught me talking and had me leave the classroom.
Yeah, so frustrating for like I totally see it from the teacher's point of view now.
Yeah.
Like another one we watched. This was like a different class, but we watched like it was like a Shakespeare. It was like Hamlet or something, but it starred Patrick Stewart. So like it was toast. We were like engage, number one, number one. Why are you making number two? What's up with that funky odor? Like it was and like that teacher just like shut it off. He's like fuck you guys. We're done.
Yeah, I got in trouble too in Scouts because the one Scoutmaster was driving us to the event, and we were just like doing jokes the whole time in the back, and we were saying that like he was a it wasn't him. He was wearing like we were just like saying the stupidest shit, and he was going insane in the front, driving him.
Yeah, So this shot right here is the one that makes me think of Last Crusade. It was like in reverse. It was like the horses and the guy going in, and it's like it makes this like weird shape where you're like, it looks like you're looking at like some tall person dancing or something, you know, and you know,
3 kids in a trench coat,
right? Yeah,
they're like
yeah, you know,
shimmying their way over.
But it's like that same shot, but in reverse, coming from like deep back, where like there's all kinds of like atmospheric effects and haze going on, and yeah, those like sort of crossed straps, on like a tan outfit is, you know,
we've seen that before.
Yeah, right.
So I'm thinking about like our school riffing. It's like Total Recall, babies.
Right, yeah. It's like threatening them for like taking water, and then it's like, okay, he sees the stakes, so the next time around when they're like at somebody's water well, and he's there with his like little army, and then, you know, Anthony Quinn shows up, he's like, okay, I gotta figure out, and then he comes up with a thing of like, hey, why don't you treat us like guests? He's meeting Omar Sharif, and then they're at Anthony Quinn's well, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, how about you treat us like guests, like we're guests, just say we're, instead of we're water thieves, how about we're guests? And he's like, okay, you know.
He cools the
he cools the situation off.
Really cool that, like, you know, you have this big desert and then there's a little lake. That'd be find a little well there.
I know Dune so much better than I know this, and just like the value of water and stuff like that, you know, like, you know.
Yeah, water is precious.
Yeah, and that he's like this special guy who can, you know, this Lawrence is a misfit. You know, he's kind of given a job that like nobody else wants. You know?
Yeah.
And then you know, and again, like, just in my life, I've seen that play out a number of times. I've seen it play out for other people. I've seen it play out for myself, where it's like somebody takes the job nobody else wants, and it's just an amazing opportunity that can be, you know, turned into something. You know?
Special.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to get some sun this summer here.
Yeah, it is not like, as spring is sort of starting to come, and then watching this, like, you know, summer movie, you know, this like deep heat, summer. You know.
I watch it from a tanning bed. I've got those like goggle things in.
One scene where it's like, it just seems like they're like in the desert, and they're like just out of hope, and they've just been going and like we're getting nowhere, and then they see like a boat go by, you know, and they're like at the Suez Canal, you know. And I've seen that shot referenced in other movies too, you know, where like suddenly a boat appears, shows up where you're not expecting to see one, you know, where you don't realize there's water there.
Right, you know? There.
That camel looks so tall. Too.
It does.
It looks like the tallest camel ever.
I was trying to figure out like how comfortable that are they, like between the humps sitting, or are they like perched like on the top
right
of the
on the
hump?
top of the hump, yeah, some kind.
And they got a little handle.
And I like how he like burns his clothes at a certain point, and he kind of, you know.
Yeah, when he's laying there, Omar Sharif throws them in the fire. Man, that's got to be so dusty. I would be sick of sand and everything.
And in Dune, every person that like Paul Atreides meets is like ready to kill him, like hates him, and then it becomes like his best friend, you know. And that's
so Dune.
Yeah. Again, like remembering back to high school when we were watching this, I remember the teacher saying, like, I didn't really catch it watching this, but like one of the characters is, you know, from the Saud, like the Saudi family.
Okay.
You know, I don't know if it's Omar Sharif or if it's Alec Guinness, but somebody's from this. So it's like we're watching like the beginning of, you know, Saudi Arabia, of like Arabia kind of becoming, you know, like how often do you hear about that, of a country taking the name of a family, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, where it goes from being Arabia to being Saudi Arabia, you know, it would be like, you know, Bush America or something, you know, like.
This movie is so massive, it was like melting my brain. So I'm trying to like.
Well, especially like living in Pittsburgh, we're not accustomed to these vast, infinite landscapes. You know, it's kind of like you can only see so far. There's like a mountain or a bunch of trees, or you know. There's
usually a pierogi's blocking your view. Yeah, like you put some parking chair down for that camel.
Yeah, like where I used to live for like years, you couldn't see the sun rise or set from my house. You know, like you couldn't. You'd have to like walk, you know, pretty far down, like in one direction to see the sunset, and then you have to walk pretty far in the other direction to see the sunrise. And that's Pittsburgh, you know.
Yeah.
Like where I live now, you can see the sunrise and the sunset, and it is kind of
it's
a novelty, you know. But like actually, you can kind of see there's like kind of a hill, and then you'll see like after the sun has risen for a while, you'll eventually see the sun crest over that hill, and then in the back you can see it set.
There was a Star Wars shot here.
Yeah, very Star Wars. And this is also, like, the beginning of Last Crusade, when they're in that sort of, like, Arizona desert or whatever.
Yes.
And then the end of Last Crusade, when they're going through Petra.
Oh, yeah.
These great mountains, these just amazing mountains. You can't make a movie that takes place in the desert without checking out Lawrence of Arabia, you know? It's you got it. Like,
it's
it's
a must.
due diligence.
Look how small that movie is, like...
Yeah, the human scale. And again, like, watching it, like, projected, you know, large, it was amazing. It was, you know, just, you get to see all the little bits of it. Because, like, sometimes you'll see, like, these, you know, guys riding on camelback that are just, like,
teensy.
Super tiny, yeah.
Dude, that projector was a great...
Yeah, it was one of those things. It was, like, half off or, like, deep discount at Aldi. Like, and I'm like, let me give this a shot. Well, why not? It's, you know, $50 or something.
Amazing grab.
Mm-hmm. I like how all the British guys are just like fucking idiots, you know? They're all like, you know.
Giant fucking morons.
Oh man, this stuff where like the biplanes show up and it reminds you like, oh yeah, there is a war going on, you know.
And there's a biplane in Last Crusade.
Yeah, the where, and it's like a biplane that's strafing people on the ground, you know, just like in Last Crusade. Yeah, he was totally riding the Last Crusade motorcycle.
Yeah. And then when he wrecked it, somehow his underwear got snagged. You guys in class.
Yeah, it was just like you can imagine the nightmare. Like you would not, you know, that's a bad idea. Like I know the teacher thinks, oh, this will be easy, and the kids will be so glad to be watching a movie. And it's like, no, you know, you're gonna be eaten alive. You know, the big centerpiece is like when they attack that train and stuff.
Yeah.
And they actually. They did that, I think it was in the Book of Boba Fett, that like Boba Fett series on Disney. They did the exact thing, or maybe it was an episode of The Mandalorian, I forget. I think they did it in both. I think there's like a train attack in both of those, you know, referencing this, where you're like, you know, attacking a train, and then it becomes kind of like, Salvador Dali absurdist, because it's like the middle of the desert and then somebody's like walking around with like a giant clock.
Oh, I know.
You know?
That was hilarious. I laughed out. I was like blowing. It was making the noises.
Yeah, and
just seeing the train or that. Yeah, just in the middle of the desert. It's like just flat, bland, and then there's all this action.
Yeah, it's very cool. And then there's like a scene like later on where it's like they're trying to get to Damascus. They're trying to get, and like then they're like riding. They're in the desert again, and then one of the guys rides up and he's like, you know, I was in Damascus, and he had grapes. He had grapes, and that's like
those look so good.
Yeah, it's you know, such a cool symbol. And then like, Lawrence takes one and eats it, and you're thinking like, oh man, that's a delicious grape, because your tongue is like covered with sand, and then you're taking a bite of this grape, and then he's kind of like making a weird face, and then he's like, the other guy's like, they're not ripe yet, and so he ate like a shitty grape, you know. And there's Alec Guinness, you know, and it's like, okay, I'm making my. You know, my science fiction. I'm making my science fiction movie that's kind of a riff on Dune to begin with. Let's get
Alec Guinness.
Yeah.
When George Lucas
in a similar mode, because like Alec Guinness, you know, he did, you know, the Lady Killers. You know, he has a bunch of different modes, but then this is kind of his like very, you know, like regal mode. You know, like the story of Peter O'Toole was auditioning for Tron. And like they wanted him to play Sark / Dillinger, but he didn't want to. He wanted to play Tron, and so John Lasseter, the director of Tron, tells this story of like talking to Peter O'Toole in the hotel room, and Peter O'Toole is like jumping from like the chair to the bed to like the desk, you know, pretending to throw discs and stuff. Like auditioning his heart out for Tron, and they just, you know, you know, it just what, you know, they weren't looking for that, you know, they want, and so it didn't happen. But
that's cool as hell though.
I could see that though, where it's like, okay, like no, I want to play the Lawrence role in Tron. I don't want to play, you know, like the villain or whatever. I want to play Lawrence. I want to play the hero jumping around. But so I'm kind of picturing, like after seeing this, I am kind of picturing, you know, Peter O'Toole as Tron. But again, it's like It's like maybe Peter O'Toole, if they made Tron in the 60s, you know,
yeah.
I could see that. But.
That's cool, though, that he's like, that always excites me whenever they're doing an audition and they're like, you know, doing something ridiculous to try to, like, get the attention.
Yeah, because when you're an actor, you know, it's a whole other thing. Like, you know, do you remember any, like, Peter O'Toole movies or anything? Like, when you were, because I don't, like,
No.
I know he was in, I think he was in some kind of, like, one of those like bad like haunted house comedy movies of the 80s but it's just Peter O'Toole was just like one of these guys. It was like a name you kept hearing. It's a cool sounding name.
I love his name.
He's got a great name, and like he'd be somebody like you'd maybe see on a talk show, or there was the actor Richard Harris, and he'd always have these stories about him and Peter O'Toole getting drunk that he would tell on the Tonight Show and stuff. So like that's all I knew of Peter O'Toole. You know?
Oh, same here. He was in Ratatouille. He had a voice in Ratatouille.
Okay.
That might be one of his last movies. His cousin's Seamus O'Toole.
And this kind of thing's been spoofed. You know, like Tropic Thunder or something, where you're directing this huge epic where there's like, you know, you need walkie-talkies and things to talk to like the guys who are like maybe a mile away, you know, and stuff. And then, you know, everything goes wrong, like the, you know, the signals get mixed and stuff.
Yeah, like he has a luxurious tent.
Yeah, these tents look super cozy and
He's like, use the Force, T.E. Remember when Obi-Wan had to like was crawling on that thing to like flick that switch or whatever?
Yeah,
he's like doing something similar.
And like again, like just from like my perspective watching this in high school, it's like, you know, I think Omar Sharif was like doing like some kind of like commercials or like it was something similar to like Telly Savalas in the Players Club. You know, it's just not gonna, you know, it's just not gonna go over. Like again, this is why, you know, somebody would have used Omar Sharif in a commercial because he establishes himself. But like all these guys were all washed up, you know, by the time like we're watching this movie, you know.
Tom, our product placements, we get the Jack Palance,
right? Because Jack Palance is another one because he was like at least he had City Slickers, you know. At least he had that where it's like, oh, okay, and then Batman. It's like, oh yeah, he's the guy from Batman. But like if he didn't have those things, and then he's you know, doing the aftershave,
he's like, confidence is sexy. Don't you think? But I'm gonna track down the Players Club. We have the Jack Palance.
Players with Yourselves Club, the Saturday Night Live parody. Telly Savalas. The Players with Yourselves Club. Who loves you, baby?
Bust a vein. That's so funny.
Yeah, I'll have to look up what it was because Omar Sharif was on some kind of, you know, commercial kind of thing. And yeah, Peter O'Toole, like I'll have to look again. Yeah, I think he was in some kind of movie where like Daryl Hannah was a ghost or something. You know, just he was you know, scraping the bottom of the barrel. You know,
whatever Omar Sharif was shilling, I'm buying it. Like, Jack, try some of this skin razor. Confidence is sexy. Don't you think? I say we get the Total Recallpiece Theatre seal of approval.
Yeah, so who are we to judge? But yeah, it's Lawrence of Arabia. It lives up to the hype. Watch it on as big a screen as you can, you know, get your hands on. And yeah, you know, next time there's some film festival or something and they're playing this,
we should see that.
Yeah, we're there. I'm Tom Scioli, author of I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. And you can pre-order that upcoming book in the show notes below. That you'll find a link, and that same link, you can follow that to pre-order the softcover edition of Jack Kirby: The Epic Life of the King of Comics.
I'm Matt Zeoli,
and you can follow me on Twitter at Tom Scioli or on Instagram at Tom_Scioli.
Follow me on Instagram at cinema_tune.
And you can support my Patreon. Go to patreon.com, search Tom Scioli, and if you sign up, you'll have access to the full archive of you know, various comics and things that I've worked on, and access to new things as I post them there.
Follow me on Instagram at cinema_tune.
There's this scene. Yeah, how come this didn't become a trilogy? There is like the scene where he like goes nuts. You know, where it's like one of his friends like goes off into the battle, gets shot. And he, you know, goes from this kind of like reluctant warrior into this like bloodthirsty monster.
Peter O'Toole's when he plays crazy, he does a great like loose cannon.
Again, those eyes.
His eyes bulge out of his head. When he's looking at his knife, his eyes like they go. He's like.